Nosy Nancy's is a true crime podcast based in Austin, Texas. If you are sensitive to any of the trigger words, this is not the podcast for you. Due to its graphic nature, listener discretion is advised.
Somewhere between the sandy and again. Well, I was just pretending that it's all just a dream. A little condescending to believe in it. I'm getting the notion that I'm going all in.
Hey, all you nosies. I'm Aliqua.
And I'm Jasmine, and welcome to Nosy Nancy Season 2, Episode 3.
It's been a crazy week, and I don't even want to talk about it.
It has been a crazy week. There's been so much going on.
There really has.
What'd you do for Thanksgiving?
So my Thanksgiving was fine. It was just, I went to my friend Renee's house, and we just had, a little something. But as you know, my ex-boyfriend, Aaron, passed away on the 14th. That's been pretty hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever told you. Did I ever tell you the story of me and Aaron? I'm not going to tell you now because it's a long ass story. Like, people don't want to hear about love; they want to hear about murder. But for like 10 years, we were on and off.
Yeah.
I saw him freshman year, second semester of freshman year, getting off the bus, and I was like in love with him because I thought he looked like Kurt Cobain. In reality, he doesn't look anything like Kurt Cobain. I was just, 15. And
I like your pause before Kurt Cobain.
I'm in love.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous boys.
Love
Anyways.
it.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about your Thanksgiving.
So my Thanksgiving...
It was your first Thanksgiving.
Yeah, mine and Todd's first Thanksgiving.
Saved napkins and...
Oh my God, I should have. But no, I didn't do that because I was barely functioning. Like, I feel so bad. So we got there, we went to Todd's dad's. The night, was crazy. The night was crazy. We started drinking and just talking. It wasn't, super duper crazy, but I got, a little more lit than I realized at the time. And I know... when I start seeing double, that I'm definitely going to have, a headache,
I haven't seen double in, years, Jasmine.
Well, I party hardy, but evidently I'm too fucking old for that shit, because I woke up in the middle of the night because I was just hot. And we turned on the fans, but I could feel it then, and I'm like, thank God I have in my purse my, medicine. I'm like Dr. Quinn. I carry around this medicine bag.
Yeah, I loved her.
With all my stuff in there. I'll get it in a little while, and then I'll be healthy and happy and have a great Thanksgiving. I'm officially awake. I go to get my medicine out of my bag, and it's not there. And fuck, now I don't have any, ibuprofen or anything. So I'm just doing my best. Eventually Todd wakes up and he goes to try to find me some medicine. And he brings back aspirin, and I'm like, well, the aspirin, upsets my stomach and stuff, so I can't really take it. And he's like, okay. So he's looking for other medicine. He can't find any, so he goes to get some Advil for me.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just in bed, suffering. And he comes back, I take the Advil, and everybody's starting to kind of stir around, and everybody else in the house is kind of moving around now. And I'm waiting for this Advil to kick in. And I go into the bathroom and I just start throwing up. And I haven't thrown up in forever.
Oh my God. I can't tell you the last time I threw up.
I have been throwing up more. When Todd and I first met, I was like, yeah, I never throw up, because it's true. But I've thrown up a lot.
It's because you go to those tiki bars and drink insane tiki drinks.
Well, and that's
like,
the thing. That's the thing too, is like I can usually handle like quite a bit of alcohol.
liquor.
But
Yeah.
here lately, I can't even be doing that. So I'm in there in the bathroom, like throwing up. Everybody else is like, Happy Thanksgiving. Like, everybody's feeling so good. And they're happy. And like, breakfast is being made. His dad's in the kitchen making breakfast. And I'm just like, okay, I got to get recovered. Well, I've thrown up my Advil now.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, shit. So a few hours go by, and I'm like back and forth in the bathroom, like just doing my thing, tossing my cookies everywhere.
Right.
And
normal.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, maybe if I get some like Pepto-Bismol or something, just something to like coat my stomach to help with the nausea. Todd was trying to help me find some Pepto-Bismol. And he asks his little grandmother if she has any Pepto-Bismol, and she's like, "Oh yeah, come out into my little house back here."
She's a witch doctor.
He goes back there, and she doesn't have any Pepto-Bismol, but what she does make me is ginger tea. And she brings me the ginger tea, and I'm sipping it. And at this point, it's like the day's half over. Everybody's relaxing, like eating their Thanksgiving dinner. I can't eat. I'm just at the table, like being present. And I feel so bad because everything looks so good. And Todd's dad is so sweet. He's like, you don't have to sit here if you're, I couldn't imagine having to watch people eat. And I'm like, no, it's like, I do, like, I want to be present, just ignore me, You
didn't eat any Thanksgiving food?
I mean, they packed me, like, a plate to eat later, which I did eat whenever I got home and got medicated and my headache and stuff started to go away.
But feeling better. Good.
But that ginger tea that Todd's G-Mimi is what they call her, made G-Mimi.
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 Oh my God, I love that.
I know.
She sounds like she should be part of like Run DMC or something.
She's honestly like the most adorable person on the planet.
Jamimi, you know what? My dad is always like, oh, you're sick? Eat some ginger. Eat some ginger.
I had always heard that ginger was good for like upset stomach and everything.
It is, yeah.
It like literally saved my life. I never did throw up again. And then, like, on the ride home, I didn't eat or drink anything for, like, an hour before we, like, drove. Because I was like, well, I don't want to I don't want to have to pull over.
Yeah,
so, today, like, I was supposed to go to work today. And I called in sick because I have got, like, I woke up and I still was feeling nauseous. And I'm like, damn. Ew.
Maybe you're pregnant.
No, don't. Just don't. Yeah, and my neck is like sore. Like my entire neck is sore.
Probably from all the lurching you did.
And
over the toilet.
and I look it up, and it's like some migraine like hangover that you can get that like makes your body and stuff sore and just makes you feel like shit afterwards.
Ugh. God.
So, needless to say, I can't function.
Well, I was like grieving so bad that like I literally got myself, like I made myself sick.
Yeah.
I like had chills, had a fever. But what's really crazy is that, I don't know if I told you this, or if I sent you did I send you the picture? I might have sent you the picture. But like on the 17th of November, was my anniversary of me and Aaron getting back together for the third and final time in 2017. And I was on my way to my clients in Leander, and I was at Starbucks, of course, because I'm basic. And I like looked at my memories on Facebook, and I saw that, and I was like, oh, granted, this is like 3 days after he died, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, what is this? And I took a screenshot of it, and then I like threw my phone onto the passenger seat next to me,
Mhm.
and then I bawled while I was like ordering my latte.
Oh
And then
my
when I got to
God.
I know. And then could you imagine like being on the other end of that? Like, oh God, how do you deal with somebody just like crying like a maniac on the other end of that? But I'd be like, do you want your latte or not? Like, let's let's speak let's speak English here. I can't understand you through all the tears. But so I go to my client's house and I open my phone to show her the screenshot of me and Aaron's anniversary.
Mhm.
And there's this picture on my phone that I didn't take. Did I tell you about this?
Yeah, you showed me the picture. That's creepy.
Isn't it so creepy?
Yeah.
And like the night before, or maybe it was the 2 nights before, I was like, they all melded together. Literally, I thought it was like 18th for like 5 days straight. Okay,
Mhm.
but I like was like crying and like being like, Aaron, show me a sign that you care,
Aww.
And I know, no, so crazy, it's so stupid, but and
That'd
then
be
that
me,
picture
though.
showed up. I know. I haven't even talked to him in 5 years, and I'm like, he was the love of my life. You know what I mean? Like, oh God. Trying to find a psychic to like look at this picture because I don't know, man, it's wild.
The picture that you showed me, I'm like, what is that? Like, I couldn't tell if it was you
I don't
or
know.
lips.
What? It's like a pink aura, basically, too, which is like if you're into crystals and shit
Mhm.
and auras, it's like supposed to represent like love and like acceptance and blah 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 blah. Um and so I was like, "Oh my God, it's a sign." But I'm trying to find like a psychic to like look at it and be like either be like, "Yeah, this is Aaron trying to talk to you from the other side," or them being like, "Okay, you're just like
You're
making shit
just
up because
insane.
yeah, you're just grieving and trying like grasping at straws here." But either way, it was pretty crazy that it popped up. I
Yeah, I'd be freaked out, honestly.
oh my God, it was I don't know, the whole thing is just crazy. I'll tell you the story one day, but yeah, it's been a rough week for sure. I do want to say real quick before we start that my case is um of a 13-year-old girl,
Oh.
which which is hard to talk about because obviously it's never a good time talking about death, but even especially when it happens to a minor. But I do find it to be important that we do talk about her case because I only found one other podcast that mentioned anything about her.
Oh, wow.
She is a person of color, and her case has been cold for over 35 years. It's super uncomfortable for me to talk about it.
Mm.
So if you are listening and you don't want to hear the story of Veronica Taylor, then I don't take offense to it. You can totally fast forward after Jasmine tells her cold case. Should we
Man.
just I know. God, this is a depressing episode already. Can we just not
Get it over with.
yeah, can we just get this over with? Jesus.
Mine still is very much like a warm case.
Okay.
Because it is currently marked cold, but it's very much like the last case where they had somebody in custody, but there were multiple suspects. And
Right.
as of currently, they haven't been able to pin anybody. They don't know anything. So it's still marked as a cold case. So this is Natalie Antonetti. She was 38 years old, and she was living with her 16-year-old son, Johnny, and her roommate, Susan, in an apartment in Austin. On the night of October 12th, Natalie had gone out with some friends to the Steamboat and another club called the Toulouse, both on 6th Street, both which have since closed. And she went out with some friends. She came back around 2:30, and she fell asleep on the couch. Her roommate, Susan, saw her when she arrived home. Like, come and sit on the couch. And Susan was, I guess, kind of up and down all night. So she saw her when she originally arrived home around 2:30.
Right.
She saw her again when she came out of her room around like 4:40 to get a glass of water.
Okay.
Susan looked at the door to make sure that it was closed, but she didn't test the lock or anything.
That's like single woman 101.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Always lock your doors.
At that point, Natalie was asleep on the couch. So Susan, about an hour or so later, said that she heard some thumping sounds and moaning, and then heard a door shut. Susan got up and went into the living room and found Natalie sitting up on the couch holding her head. She said that Natalie was so completely covered in blood, she almost didn't recognize her.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so just blatant attack in the middle of the night.
Like just somebody just came in and hit her on the head and left?
Yeah, and left. So Susan woke up Johnny, her son, and called 911. Natalie was beaten so badly she wasn't able to speak or answer any questions while they were waiting for the ambulance. They said that she just had a really frightened look in her eyes.
Well, yeah, she just got fucking beat up in the middle of the night.
And after arriving to the hospital, Natalie slipped into a coma where she remained for 18 days before succumbing to her injuries.
Oh, my God. That's so hard.
Yeah, it's fucking awful. Just sleeping on the couch.
It's bold as hell, though. Some of these people are bold as hell coming in early morning hours where people could be awake.
I mean, I haven't been lately, but typically I get up at 4:30 or whatever, and I'm just hanging out, enjoying the morning before work and stuff. And other people work out and stuff. I just sit around, but
yeah.
But I mean, other people have stuff to do.
I know a guy that gets up at 4:00 in the morning and works out, and I'm just like, why? Do you hate yourself? Why do you or
who
what
the
are you
fuck wants to do that?
I don't know.
Ugh.
God, these beautiful, good-looking people.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Thanks, but no thanks.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Let me.
So the medical examiner determined that Natalie obviously had suffered from blunt force trauma that was consistent with having been attacked with a club or a baseball bat. The attack caused skull fractures and brain contusions, which is what led to Natalie being in the coma.
Oh, my God.
Police didn't discover any signs of forced entry. Nothing was missing from the apartment. She wasn't sexually assaulted, and there were no defensive wounds on her body. But they did say it seemed like it was a brutal yet targeted attack, and they had absolutely no leads at that time for who would want to harm Natalie.
That probably means the door was unlocked.
Yeah. Could you imagine her roommates to have to know that you looked at the door and you didn't test the lock?
Oh God, she's probably just riddled with guilt.
Yeah,
I would be.
I would be too, honestly. That's terrible.
She probably thinks about it every day for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
I should have just locked the door.
Yeah,
you know.
If I would have tested it,
yeah,
everything could have been different.
Oh God. That sucks.
So that same morning that Natalie was attacked, another 911 call was made by a man who lived in the same apartment complex named Don Chelly. And he was calling because he saw a man outside that was looking into people's windows. Don approached the man, and the man told him, you're the second person that stopped me tonight. And Don just, I'm assuming just was like, okay, well, fuck you.
Well,
Like,
how
I'll
about
just go call the police.
yeah, how about you stop being so creepy? How
Yeah.
about that?
So a composite sketch of the man was created based on Don's description, and he described the man as a tall, husky man with long blonde hair. And Don said that he was holding a baseball bat.
Okay, well that fits the murder weapon.
Right. Police asked Don if he would attend a police lineup to see if he recognized any of the men. Don identified a man named John Martin, better known as Marty Odom. Marty also lived in this apartment complex with Don and Natalie.
Okay.
Shortly after Natalie's murder in 1986, he was also convicted of breaking into another woman's apartment and raping her.
Okay, so obviously this guy did it, right?
Right. That's what we're thinking.
Okay, yep.
Marty was known to carry a baseball bat at all times, and his
Okay.
ex-wife had claimed that he was abusive and sexually violent. Police questioned Marty in relation to Natalie's murder, and obviously he said it wasn't him. Police didn't have enough evidence to bring him to trial, but Marty eventually went to prison for another crime, so Natalie's case just went cold.
Why didn't they just take his baseball bat that he always had on him?
Exactly. Like,
And-
it's got to be fucking Marty, right?
I mean, I know they didn't have DNA evidence back then, but like they could still have taken it in as a possible, you know.
Yeah, done something. I mean, come on.
Done something. Yeah.
So,
What the fuck?
more than 20 years after Natalie's murder, in 2007, the Austin Police Department received an anonymous call. It was a lady named Rebecca Davis who said that her husband, Dennis Davis, was the one who was responsible for Natalie's death. Dennis,
you know what? I knew somebody named Rebecca Davis, but she was married to a David Davis.
Are you sure it wasn't Dennis who changed his name?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
David. Yeah, it wasn't Dennis, but that's just bizarre. They lived out in Wimberley though. But go ahead.
Maybe
Sorry.
they moved and changed one of their first names.
Their names, yeah. Maybe.
So Dennis Davis was actually like a pretty popular and well-known guy. He was a studio owner and an engineer, and he was pretty well known in the music business. It looks like he worked with big stars in Nashville like Tim McGraw and Faith Hill.
Ooh, what?
Never have I ever heard of him.
Me either.
Don't know who, don't know him.
I know David Davis, but not Dennis Davis.
So
I think he died, so it's probably not him.
Oh, okay.
Or if it was him, we'll never know.
So police, when they were provided with his name, they said he didn't even seem like an obvious suspect, but he did previously date Natalie. So he was an ex-boyfriend. He told police that the night that Natalie was murdered, he was with his girlfriend, who was his girlfriend at that time, named Amparo Garcia Crow. He said that he got a phone call from a friend, and that was why he knew that Natalie got murdered. And he went straight over to the apartment complex, and he was there actually when Natalie got in the ambulance.
Okay, well, look, he has an alibi, right? The guy has an alibi. The other guy doesn't have an alibi, I'm assuming. Had a fucking murder weapon. Went on to assault other people.
Yeah. Well, see, when police spoke to Amparo, she told the police that she had dated Dennis, but she wasn't with Dennis that night because they broke up 3 days before Natalie's murder. So
okay.
They weren't even together. They weren't even together.
What the fuck? I don't know. This is getting heavy.
I know. This is all over the place. Another woman named Glenda Bless who was an ex-girlfriend of Dennis, told
Uh-huh.
police that there were two different sides to Dennis. He was nice
Of
at
course.
times. Yeah, right?
Right.
He was nice at times, but he was also jealous and violent. And Glenda told the police that he had confessed to her that he had killed Natalie.
Okay.
Before Natalie's murder, Dennis left a note for Natalie after discovering that she had a new boyfriend.
What did it say?
It said, Natalie, you can go to hell and take Doug with you. If you don't have the brains and self-respect to see through his bullshit, then fuck you. DD.
Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So in 2009, Dennis was arrested and charged with the murder of Natalie. It was the prosecution's case that Dennis had entered Natalie's apartment in the early hours on the 13th of October in 1985. They built their case around the belief that Dennis was a violent man who was known to have a temper and physically assaulted women in the past. They called in a number of witnesses to testify.
Oh, that does not look good, Dennis. If they're sure Dennis did it, then why is it still a cold case?
Well, I'm about to get right to that.
Okay, I'm ready. My body is ready.
Okay. I'll be gentle.
Okay, thanks.
Glenda testified that she dated Dennis from 1987 to 1989. She said that one night, after a night out, Dennis curled up into a ball on the porch and said, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to hurt her. I didn't mean to kill Natalie. Glenda said that he killed her because Natalie was pregnant with his baby. And she also claimed that he was physically abusive to her, meaning Glenda, during their relationship. Susan Otten, who's Natalie's roommate, also testified. She said that Dennis claimed that he didn't own a baseball bat, but that she saw a bat at Dennis's house after Natalie's murder. It was the defense's case that there was absolutely no physical evidence against Dennis whatsoever. The jury heard the recording of the 911 call that Don Shelley made minutes after Susan called 911 about the attack. Don claimed that he was walking back to his apartment from 7-Eleven when he saw the man looking into an apartment window. He said the man was carrying the bat, but the description of the man, which was the husky blonde, didn't match Dennis's physical description, which was tall, lanky, brown hair, mustache. The composite drawing, of course, that was made at the time was lost. They didn't have it.
It seems like all this is circumstantial, except for the fact that Dennis was like saying that he did it. But do we have evidence where he is actually saying that? Because anybody could say that anybody said something.
No. We have no evidence.
Yeah, it's all circumstantial.
It's entirely circumstantial.
Hardly ever do people get convicted on just circumstantial evidence. I mean, that's quite a coincidence that there was somebody looking in other people's windows with a baseball bat.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Around the same time.
That's pretty bizarre.
Dennis, this whole time, had maintained that he was with Amparo that night.
Right.
He did admit that he left that note on Natalie's door. So, I mean, that's not a cute move, Dennis.
No.
That's not real cute.
But also you would think if he had just broken up with Amparo the 3 nights before, which is what she said, like, wouldn't he be more, like, obsessed about Amparo and their relationship rather than Natalie, who he'd been broken up with for a while?
Well, I mean, he did leave that note on her door, like, within days
of
her dying.
Yeah,
So
that's so strange.
he was still like not over Natalie and still jealous over what she was doing.
Maybe the breakup between him and Amparo kind of stirred up all these feelings that he had for Natalie and the
Yeah.
breakup that they had.
Right.
But still, it's so
I don't know.
strange that there would be a guy who was like looking in other people's windows, who lived there, who had a baseball bat. And anyways, if you're just looking through people's windows, not that I'm condoning that, but like why would you need a baseball bat for that?
Yeah, like,
Unless
are you going to hit them when they pop out and say, like,
exactly.
what are you doing looking in my window?
Exactly. I mean, that to me, that's pretty, I mean, that's an eyewitness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who has like on record called in that there was a man with a fucking baseball bat.
Oh, right.
So I'm guessing they never convicted Dennis.
Well, no, of course not, because the
Right.
defense started tearing everybody's accounts apart. They
Right.
focused on Glenda's testimony. They said that in her pre-trial conversations with the police, she couldn't really recall what Dennis had told her. And also, the medical records showed that Natalie was not pregnant. So, Rebecca Davis,
Like his wife.
his
Right.
wife, she claimed that the reason she did it is because she was mad at him at the time.
Oh,
And she recanted her statement, so it wasn't even usable. She said that
fuck.
she did say that Dennis previously had told her that Natalie was too trusting, never locked her doors, and that one night somebody broke in to her apartment and hit her in the head. He told her that he believed someone at the apartment complex attacked her. She claimed never to have ever heard him confess to Natalie's murder. She was just mad.
That's okay. That's really fucked up. That why would anybody just I mean, like defense lawyers suck, but like there is a reason for them because of things like that.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And like what are they getting? Like are they getting arrested or anything because they need to
Yeah.
be?
I think I'm not sure. I think if you lie under oath, then yeah, I mean it can be a punishable offense.
Her call to the police being like, "Oh, my husband murdered somebody 20 years ago and he just told me all about it," is the whole reason that he even got picked up in the first place. So
Yeah, which
and then for her to be like, "Oh, I was just mad."
also it takes away the time that they could have used to convict the other guy who probably really was the one that fucking
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah. Well, they've already given up on that guy because he's in jail for something else.
I mean, what are the odds though? What are the odds that it wasn't that guy that was holding the fucking bat? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly. I mean, he's out walking around.
Right.
So
Right.
Dennis didn't testify, but the jury did read a statement that he gave to the police where he said that he dated her off and on for only 9 months and that they just remained friends. According to Dennis's statement, he did see Natalie on the afternoon of October 12th before she even went out to 6th Street. He said she seemed fine. He spent the night with Amparo Garcia. He received a call from Susan at around 5:30 a.m. or 6 a.m. in the morning of October 13th, and he said that Susan was in hysterics, screaming that there's blood everywhere and something's wrong with Natalie.
I was just gonna say, like, okay, like this happened early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm assuming, I mean, there was no cell phones back then. So gone to the apartment, assaulted her, and then gone to his own place of residence in time for her roommate to call him at his house. It seems
See, and that's what's weird to me is like, so Susan woke up Johnny, who is Natalie's son.
right.
Like, okay, that's understandable. Like, your mom's hurt, get up, like, sit with her, I gotta call the ambulance. Why the fuck would she call Dennis? Like, that would have been around the time that she's calling the ambulance and waiting for them to show up.
Well, who knows?
Or
I mean, but
maybe Dennis was just lurking around.
Well, how would he be lurking around if she called him at his house?
Well, this is according to Dennis that he received this call.
Well, I mean, but you got to remember this is in the 70s, right? Or 80s?
80s.
Yeah, so he'd have to be at his house because there's no cell phones. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Oh, I get what you're saying.
yeah. So
But
like
did she really call him? That's what I'm saying. Is like, this is just according to Dennis. Susan
yeah,
didn't say
right.
this.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why it's a mystery. I just don't see how there's any way that he could have gone to her apartment,
Hmm.
assaulted her and then drove back. Although Austin traffic wasn't bad back then.
It was reported that Dennis knew how many times Natalie had been struck in the head with the bat, but he claimed that he only knew this because Susan told him about the sounds. Honestly, like, if Susan was sleeping, which she
Wait,
said
how
that she was doing, she
but
said
how
that
would you
the noises of the thumping and the moaning and the door shut is what woke her up.
I just don't see how you would know so how many times somebody got like beaten just by the sounds that somebody makes. I
Yeah,
mean,
like, I would not have any idea, I would think.
also, if you're in a different room, like how would you even hear every sound?
Well, you're in a different room. You're waking up out of a sleep, so I'm assuming too you don't even, like, your brain's not even conscious of what's happening.
Yeah, that's bizarre that he would know how many times she was struck, but maybe, I mean, this is years later when they even like brought it up to him, so
Yeah.
maybe he was like recollecting what somebody had told him previously, but he thought it
Yeah.
was what he knew at the time.
Yeah.
That's bizarre. What a
Yeah.
weird case.
I know.
So is
Um
it's still open
well,
then?
the jury did find Dennis guilty of the
Oh,
murder, and he was
no.
sentenced to 36 years in prison. 2 years
Oh,
after his sentencing, the conviction was overturned and a new trial was ordered because the appeals court believed that Dennis's lawyer was ineffective and didn't submit evidence about another suspect, Marty Odom, who was the guy who Don Shelley saw
right, with the baseball
with the
bat.
baseball bat. The appeals court
Oh,
noted that Marty's roommate told police that Marty told him that he met a woman from apartment 188 in October of 1985, which was Natalie's apartment. Marty told him the woman invited him into her apartment. They
right.
had wine, they did the sex, and
At
afterwards.
at 6 o'clock in the morning, I don't think so.
Yeah, after a whole last night out,
No.
they had the
I mean,
wine,
yeah.
they did the sex, and afterwards she refused to have any contact with him. The roommate asked police if a bat was used in the attack because Marty had one, but he couldn't find it. He said the night
Right.
before the attack, Saturday night, he was out with Marty. They were on the same street that Natalie was on. The roommate claimed that he dropped off a friend and didn't see Marty again until after Natalie's attack. When the police questioned Marty, he claimed he had no idea who she was, but then was like, oh, I see her on walks from time to time, like when she's coming back from the laundromat. He failed the polygraph test, and the test examiner said the fail was so bad that he was 100% responsible for Natalie's death.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I would think so. Dennis was released on bond when the lawyers filed the motion to dismiss the indictment for failing to comply with the speedy trial requirement, which is like they have to get their shit together in a certain time.
Right.
The prosecution filed a motion to dismiss the case pending further investigation, so they still were trying to pin it on Dennis. But that was declined, and
Oh,
Dennis's
good.
lawyers admitted a motion to dismiss the indictment on the speedy trial grounds. Judge Wahlberg, whoever the hell that is, granted the motion and dismissed the case.
Oh, good. I
The
think.
prosecution appealed, and the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals reversed Judge Wahlberg and reinstated the indictment. However, in 2018, the prosecution dismissed the case completely. they just couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Dennis is the one who did it.
Yeah, because Dennis didn't do it, obviously.
Yeah, Don Chelly, I mean, even though they lost his little drawing, he
God.
reported seeing a tall, husky man with long blonde hair. Didn't match Dennis's description. Amparo said that. So the main thing about Amparo was she kept these like super detailed journals. And she said that she and Dennis broke up 3 days before. And they were like, okay, well, let's see your journals. Well, she didn't record anything in her journals for 3 days during the time. So she didn't have any evidence to say whether or not they actually were together or not. And Dennis was pretty convincing that they were together.
Right.
They said...
I mean, yeah, if there's no proof that he wasn't with her...
Right.
Then we'd have to just assume that he was.
Exactly. Glinda, they said, was untrustworthy. They questioned her about why she waited decades to report the confession, and she said that she just was scared. And then, of course, there's the wife who testified that she was just upset at the time, but that she misunderstood her husband when he was talking about what she thought was killing Natalie. He told her that he had like committed a bunch of sins or something.
But this seemed like a big case of like he said, she said.
Yeah, exactly.
Bullshit.
Like what a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah. Right.
The sin was that he didn't spend enough time with his mother before she died. How do you get that confused with killing somebody?
This is just a really bad case of telephone, is what that is. That's a bad case of telephone.
Yeah.
Remember that game? Oh, my God.
I do.
This just shows how, like, you can, like, whatever you say can literally change somebody's life.
I do.
But I don't understand why the police department, I guess they were just, like, so... chomping at the bit to just get this case solved that they didn't even like it's like they didn't stack the evidence against each other. Like they didn't stack the evidence against Marty and Dennis. It was just like, oh well, this person said, 3 times, 3 different people said that he did it, instead of being like, well, this fucking polygraph test, this guy failed miserably. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure that he's the one that did it.
Yeah, especially with Dawn's account of him and them being on the same street the night before.
Yeah.
And him like knowing where she lived. Even if what he said was not true about him going over to her house for wine and stuff, like obviously I don't think that's true. He probably was just saying that because he was guilty and knew that he was in her apartment at some point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And wanted to make it sound like, oh yeah, I was there, but only to have sex and to drink wine at 5:00 in the morning. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, the Austin Police Department never fails to amaze me, honestly. So is that it?
That's it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think it was Marty. I'm like...
I think so, too. Had to have been.
Well, had to have been. Like, I know that we're, like, amateur sleuths, but, like, honestly...
Come on.
Come on. Are you ready to hear about mine?
I am.
So, again, this is the cold case of Veronica Taylor. She was a 13-year-old girl in Lubbock, Texas. So if you... if this is going to be something that you can't handle, then you can feel free to fast forward this. Except for you, Jasmine, you're stuck.
I know. I'm like, how do I fast forward?
Yeah. Around 10:30 p.m. on March 25th, 1987, 13-year-old Veronica Taylor walked her baby sister, Tanika, from their apartment home over to her Aunt Celestine's house, less than a football field's length away, where her mother and relatives were playing cards together. Both Veronica and her aunt and grandmother lived in the same apartment complex, known then as the Phoenix Apartments in East Lubbock, Texas. Once Veronica made it to her Aunt Celestine's house, she asked her mother if she could stay the night at her other aunt Darlene's house, which was also about a football field length away from Veronica's own apartment. When Joyce, Veronica's mother, said yes to her spending the night at Darlene's, Veronica made her way back across the apartment complex to her own apartment to get her backpack for school the next day before heading over to her Aunt Darlene's. Veronica never made it across the apartment complex. So this is an apartment complex.
Mhm.
It's pretty big. Most of her family were like living in that same apartment complex.
Right. Okay.
On the snowy morning of March 26, 1987, a man driving along FM 1729 in eastern Lubbock, 15 or 20 miles away from the Phoenix apartment complex, spotted something horrific on the side of the road. The driver got out and realized it was the exposed body of a young girl, immediately left to call the police. Now, remember, there's no cell phones, so he had to leave the scene and go find a payphone.
Yeah.
Veronica's body was found in the nude with her underwear wrapped around her neck, and although she had been strangled and sexually assaulted, the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the back of her head by an undetermined weapon. Yeah.
Jesus.
I know, it's fucked up. Inside her discarded backpack was candy, and in video footage taken at the crime scene, an investigator appears to pick up Veronica's coat with his bare hands and dig through the pockets. A practice that probably...
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, so all the evidence that later could have been used to help solve her case was tampered with, basically, by the investigator themselves.
Police ruin they're stopping all over the crime scene, moving shit around, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, especially back then, because they just didn't they didn't have DNA evidence back then, so they didn't think of, you know what I mean? The medical examiner and police ruled Veronica's death a homicide caused by blunt force trauma to the back of her head, but investigators haven't been able to identify the heavy object, Lorene Taylor, Veronica's aunt, explained. To counteract this phenomenon seen in homicide cases today, forensic analysts are able to look at blood and wound patterns to help identify those objects.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have that also back then.
Right.
I guess it's blood splatter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lorene Taylor said she doesn't know if there were signs of a struggle, but the LCSO did find blood at the crime scene. She and her family assumed it belonged to Veronica. She's not the type of person that would have went up to a stranger's car. We know that. It was somebody she knew. If she did go up to the car, they did abduct her and take her away. Lorene Taylor explained. Veronica was killed less than 24 hours after she was last seen alive by family. The distance between the two houses, Lorene Taylor guessed, was approximately 100 yards, about the length of a football field. I really want people to know that it's about the length of a football field. Because I've said it 10 times now.
I promise. It's about the length. Me not even knowing how big a football field is. I'm okay.
Her family said she may have been abducted or killed between 10 and 11 p.m. as she was last seen shortly before that. It wasn't until around 7 a.m. the next morning when Lorene Taylor went to her relative's house to pick up Veronica for school. She learned Veronica wasn't there. I asked my sister where was Veronica at because she wasn't here, Lorene Taylor recalled. They reached out to her school only to find out Veronica never made it. It wasn't until they turned on the news later that morning between 11 a.m. and noon that they learned a body had been found about 15 to 20 miles away from where Veronica was last seen alive. Initially, the investigators thought the body belonged to a young woman. Based on file footage, Veronica's body appeared to be found only feet from the side of the road. They were probably driving and probably pulled over and just So I would assume that it would have to have happened at nighttime, probably around
Yeah.
4,
Right.
like 3 or 4 when people are like asleep, and you can't really see anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Although there hasn't been any major breaks in the investigation in years, Lorraine Taylor said she hasn't lost hope because she thinks she knows who is responsible.
Who was
So
it?
there's two theories uh about Veronica's case.
Mhm.
The first one is basically her family uh saying who they think it was. Now they can't name him publicly because he's not a like he's not an official suspect in her case in the
Okay.
death of Veronica, so they can't name him. But the second one they do name. My sister used to date a guy that we thought did it. He told her, because she left him and got with some other guy, that she would pay for that, Lorraine Taylor said. He told her he was going to do something real bad to hurt her for leaving him. The incident between Veronica's aunt and her violent ex-boyfriend happened within the same year that Veronica was killed. Her body was found along FM 1729 in eastern Lubbock County on the route that Veronica's aunt and ex-boyfriend often took to get home. This man also lived in a house yards away from where Veronica's body was found. So he was living in this house that was like not far, just down the road off the highway from where
From
Veronica.
Wow.
Yeah. Um
He did it.
yeah, I think so. According to her family, the ex-boyfriend later spent 25 years in prison on charges related to child molestation, which they said could be relevant as Veronica was sexually assaulted just before or around the time she was killed on that cold March day in 1987.
Yeah, my God. He
I know.
definitely did it.
They went there several times to talk with him, interview him on different things. They always let us know when they did go down and try to get information from him, Lorraine Taylor explained. He would never commit to any kind of DNA samples. So the police officers did go and question him, but he would never like give up the goods, basically. That's what I understand. If they questioned him while he was incarcerated, I don't think they have a choice. I think
Yeah,
if you're
like, wouldn't they have to, like, submit to whatever kind of testing?
I think so, because at that time you're a ward of the state. But I don't know. Maybe they didn't question him when he was locked up. It might have been after. They can get a warrant.
Yeah, they can get
for
warrants
his.
and shit for DNA.
All this is all circumstantial.
Okay.
I mean, I think he did do it, but I mean, legally, I don't think that there's enough evidence.
True, that's true.
I mean, even though he said, like, oh, something bad's gonna happen, like, and that's pretty bad, but, I mean, and it's not like he doesn't know who Veronica was, and
Right.
Veronica obviously knew who he was, so if he was like, hey, let's go, they said that she would never, ever approach anybody that she
like
didn't
a
know.
strange person.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, when it's stuff like this, it is somebody that the people know.
Exactly.
Even if the LCSO had the suspect's DNA, investigators wouldn't have been able to test the evidence for comparison. At the time, law enforcement agencies didn't have the technology to test DNA. He was a suspect, but they just don't have the evidence, Lorraine Taylor explained. Along with the theory of Veronica's aunt's ex-boyfriend, it has been suggested that Veronica might have been killed by a notorious interstate serial killer named Samuel Little, who had been convicted of killing a woman named Bobby Ann Fields in a similar manner in Odessa, Texas around 1993.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of him either.
Oh, he confessed to like over 60 murders, and they think that he could be linked to like over 93.
God.
Yeah, all the way from California to Texas. However, Veronica doesn't necessarily fit in with all of Little's other victims. Little targeted vulnerable females such as drug addicts, the homeless, and sex workers. He was a large and powerful man with a boxing background who was good with his fists. In 2006, Little was arrested for shoplifting in Lubbock, Texas. In 2020, Samuel Little died at the age of 80 while being incarcerated at a state prison in California.
Wow.
I mean, so if this guy, if he was a boxer, I mean, his fists are weapons.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
exactly. I respect the theory, but I don't think that it's correct.
yeah, and also like all of his victims, I think, were like older. But I mean, it's not like she wasn't a vulnerable victim. I mean, she
Right,
was,
it's true. No, it's true.
because she was so young.
Yeah.
He never confessed to killing her. He never like confessed to even being around the area at the time. This is just a theory that somebody else kind of came up with because they knew that he was in Texas at one point or a couple of times, because he was also picked up in 2006, but it doesn't mean that he was in Lubbock. I mean, Texas is huge.
Right,
It
exactly.
takes hours,
Yeah.
Before her life violently ended, Veronica was a happy, helpful, and bright 6th grader at Murphy Elementary.
Oh.
Her aunt Lorene Taylor said all of her teachers loved her and she enjoyed singing in the church choir. She would have turned 51 this year. We still praying that one day justice will be served and her killer will be brought to justice, Lorene shared. We still visit her grave. We take flowers out there all the time.
Damn.
There is still a reward for anybody who knows anything. It's up to $6,000. If anyone has any information pertaining to the case or the murder of Veronica, contact the sheriff's office at 806-775-1601 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-252-8477.
Hopefully they find out who did it.
Ugh, what a case. Anyways, so I guess it's time for the missing person.
Who did we have this week?
This week's missing person is a 15-year-old girl named Chelsea C. Rodriguez. She was last seen on August 24th, 2023 at Navarro High School. She was wearing black Dickies pants, a red shirt, white Air Forces, and black and white backpack, Nightmare Before Christmas theme. She is believed to be around Runberg Lane and Northgate Boulevard area.
Ooh, that's not a good area.
No. She's 125 pounds and 5'4". If you have any information that can help locate her, if you could call this number, 737-400-7941.
Well, hopefully they'll find her.
Yeah, I hope so, because she's only 15,
Yeah.
so... Ugh, it's always sad when it's somebody so young.
Yeah, that's awful.
I know. If you do like our podcast, if you can go ahead and follow us on Instagram.
It's Nosy Nancy's.
Or you can join our Facebook group or our Facebook page.
The Facebook group is Nosy Nancy's Podcast, and the Facebook page is Nosy Nancy's. Right?
I think so. I think they're both Nosy Nancy podcasts. But
Nosy okay.
Nancy's
well, they're
podcast,
both Nosy Nancy podcasts.
Yeah. If you have any questions, concerns, if you have any things you want to talk to us about, or if you have somebody that's missing, or if you have a story that you want to get out here, you can email us at nosynancies@gmail.com. That's NOSEYNANCIS@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
We sure would. Send us all your stuff.
Yeah, all your stuffs. And I think that's basically it. I have to check with Amanda, but I think next week is going to be our special episode.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm
I
excited
know,
for
me
the
too.
first one of those.
I'm excited because we don't have to talk. We
Yeah.
can sit there and
I just
listen.
get to listen.
Yeah, we just get to listen and comment.
I'm a great
With our
listener.
Well, I think that's basically it. Sorry this episode took a while to get out, but shit happens.
And
so.
sorry I'm so low energy. I'm recovering from death's door.
All right, well, I think that's it.
All right, well, we did it again.
We did it again.
We did it again. So we'll see you guys next week. Don't. I know what you're doing.
Oops, we did it again. All right.
All right. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned.
Ciao.
C'est la vie, ma